Hi there. I'm Brother Merrill, and this is Sunshine for the Soul Inspirational Stories. I appreciate you watching today, and I appreciate everyone that sends stories to us. I have some great stories from listeners today about angels among us. I hope you enjoy them. I wanted to remind you about the Firm Foundation Book of Mormon Evidences Conference. It's September 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Davis Conference Center at 1651 North, 700 West in Layton. I'll be speaking Friday the 5th at 1:10 and on Saturday the 6th at 7:15. Please join us. I also wanted to thank John Hewlett and the folks from Cardio Miracle. They're sponsoring the conference. I've gotten several listener comments that have gotten their Cardio Miracle, and this is what some of them say. Lena Albright said, "We did get our Cardio Miracle package. Thank you. I started taking it 2 days ago, and I already feel energized." Natalie Dixon said, "Thank you so much, Brother Merrill, for sharing Cardio Miracle. I've started taking it, and it's helped me. I had a stroke in April, and I have a central nerve pain on my right side. The pain had gotten really hard to deal with some days, but my pain is getting better." Tammy Twitchell said, "Thanks so much for recommending Cardio Miracle. I've just been so tired all the time, and I needed something to help me, as I have 3 adult special needs kids living at home, and it can be so exhausting and challenging. I've already noticed a huge difference in just a few days of use. Thank you." My wife and I wanted to echo those sentiments about Cardio Miracle. I feel stronger, I have more energy, and my mind seems to work more clearly. I love it. And my wife says she just feels strong again. Give Cardio Miracle a try. It has a money-back guarantee. If you don't like it, all you have to do is call them and say, "Give me my money back." You don't have to send the product back or anything. They're easy to work with. They're right here in Utah, and they're great people, and it is an awesome product. Go to cardiomiracle.com/sunshine. Thank you. Today I have some wonderful stories from our listeners about divine encounters with angels, some seen and some unseen, but felt. These stories demonstrate that each of us have angels in our midst. I believe each of us have daily encounters with heavenly beings, angels who have been selected and sent to help or direct us on specific matters in our lives. President Joseph F. Smith explains specifically who these angels that attend us are. He said, "When messengers are sent to minister to the inhabitants of this earth, they are not strangers, but from the ranks of our kindred, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, and fellow friends who have passed away from this earth. They have missions given to them to visit their relatives and friends upon the earth again, bringing from the divine presence messages of love, of warning, or reproof and instruction to those whom they had learned to love in the flesh." Most of us will not see these messengers, but they will speak to our mind and our spirit, pure concepts of truth, the language of heaven. The first story is from one of our listeners in England, Kathy McCannellan. She said, "I want to tell you of a sacred experience I had in the Preston, England temple a few years ago, when I was acting as a proxy for my maternal grandparents and sealing them together for time and eternity. I've always worried that I would be the only LDS member in my family. Let me tell you about my grandparents. All their lives, my grandparents were devout Roman Catholics, living in rural Ireland. They were very close and deeply devoted to one another. When my grandfather died, my grandmother just wasted away and passed away just 4 weeks later. Years later, while performing their sealing ordinances, as I knelt at the sealing altar in the Preston, England temple, the veil that separates mortals from the spirit world was momentarily lifted from my eyes. I was blessed to see my grandparents kneeling at an altar, holding hands, just as I was at that very moment with my grandfather's proxy. I immediately realized that they were at that exact moment symbolically reflecting the ordinance being performed for them in the house of the Lord. They were participating spiritually on their side of the veil as they accepted the sealing ordinance performed by proxy on my side of the veil. That day in the Preston Temple, I felt and witnessed their love and desire to be eternally sealed to one another. I was the only person in the room who saw them through the veil, but everyone there felt their presence and their joy. Though I may be the only LDS member in my family in this life, now I know my grandparents have accepted the gospel and will be there to greet me when it's my turn to pass through to the other side. I'm so grateful to have the gospel in my life and to be able to help my ancestors receive the blessings of the temple. Your sister, Kathy McCanlon. Thank you, Kathy. I enjoyed that story. It makes you wonder how they participate in the ordinances. I have another great story. It's from Paavi Lapalainen, who served a mission in Finland, which was the homeland of her parents. Many of their kinfolk were still living there. Her heart's desire was that one of her Finnish relatives would join the church while she was serving there on her mission. Her prayer was answered in an unusual way. Her parents had served in the Tampere, Finland area in the 60s, and during their mission had helped build the chapel there. Paavi had even been baptized in the chapel's font as a young woman. One night, near the close of her mission, she and her companion, Sister Evans, were playing the piano and singing hymns in the Tampere chapel. When it was time to leave, they walked around the chapel to make sure that the back door was locked. Paavi records, "As we walked, we felt a bubble of heavenly beings around us. After checking the back door, we walked to the front doors to leave. Just as we were about to walk out the front doors, I suddenly felt the presence of my grandfather. He'd been gone for several years. I turned to my companion and said, 'I believe my grandfather's here.' I then looked back, and there he was, standing in the hallway, all dressed in white." After her mission, as Paavi shared this experience with her family, she learned that her brother had done their grandfather's temple work just before she saw him in the Tampere chapel. She concludes, "My experience on my mission was an answer to the prayer in my heart. Now I knew that one of my Finnish relatives had been converted to the gospel while I was serving there. I know that angels do appear. I am so grateful to have experienced this myself." Thank you, sister. What a great story. Diana Rogers, one of our listeners, is a professional genealogist. She sent a couple of stories. The first is about an encounter she had in the family history library years ago. Beyond her professional research, she was very involved with research for her own ancestors. She says before the days of computerized family search and indexing, the work was tedious. Microfilm had to be loaded into viewers and scrolled through. As she could, she was working on the Hallam's line. Thomas Hallam was born in England about 1837 and married Emily Woodmansee in Pennsylvania, but that was all she knew about him. She said one day, about 30 years ago, out of the blue, a distant cousin sent me an obituary she had found in her Bible. It was the obituary for Thomas Hallam, which stated he was born in 1836 in Manchester, England, and it named a sister, Maria Ogden, who also emigrated to the United States. After receiving this obituary, Diane was traveling through Salt Lake and took some time to go to the family history library to look for Thomas Hallam and his sister on the English census. She says, "As I went downstairs to the English section and asked for help finding him in the census, the worker looked at me and told me it would be an impossible task to find him, since I wasn't even sure of the village he lived in. Undaunted, I headed for the microfilm library. On the way, a man suddenly appeared and asked if he could help me. I told him what I was trying to do, and he directed me to the exact piece of microfilm I needed. I didn't have much time, but miraculously, I found my ancestor on that very microfilm, and I got enough information to put me on the right path. And continued research led to finding his parents, grandparents, and sister's marriage and family. I've often felt that that kind man was a missionary from the other side of the veil. Diane Rogers also shared this experience. My maiden name is Steinbeagle. After years of diligently working on my family's line, all I had been able to find was that in the late 1800s, my second great-grandfather, Conrad, had immigrated to the United States with his wife and my great-grandfather, Joseph. There was a military record that reported Joseph living in Cologne, Germany, but I could not find any other records. I searched passenger lists coming to the Americas and every other document source I could think of. I knew they had settled in Illinois and that Joseph had married an English wife, Elizabeth Walwork, in Bibb County, Alabama, but there were no traces of the family before or after that marriage. Years later, and shortly after my father, Ray Steinbeagle, passed away, I was researching on a project in Bibb County, Alabama. The last name of the person I was searching for started with S. While searching in a 1900s marriage book on this line, I stumbled across Frances Steinbuckle. As I traced their records back, I learned she had moved to the same place in Illinois that my great-grandfather had moved. I felt she must be Joseph's sister. As I continued tracing them, Frances disappeared from all the records. I searched and searched for her, but she was gone. I was tired. It was late. I was discouraged, so I went to bed dejected. As I lay down, a distinct thought came to me. She went back to Germany. I leapt out of bed and ran to my computer and searched the ship passenger lists and found her and her children on a ship returning to Germany. This passenger list named where she had just left and where she was born. I had finally found my family's hometown. I immediately contacted a friend and German researcher who helped me send for her birth record, and then found my great-grandfather's record and their parents' marriage record. This discovery led to extending my family lines 5 more generations. The bond we share with family on both sides of the veil is eternal, and the love we feel is deep and poignant. When loved ones die, they are still intimately concerned about our lives and are often allowed to return to help us through difficult times or to share in our joy. I'm always amazed what family angels are allowed to do. Thank you, sister. I enjoyed that. I have another great story. In 1997, while Chris Hawks was serving his mission in Argentina, his mission president called him one evening and told him that his father had unexpectedly passed away. He told Chris he could return home to be with his family, or he could complete his mission. The choice was his. The tragic news came as a shock to Chris. He and his father were very close. Chris decided that his father would want him to complete his mission, so he put his head down and lost himself in the work. He ignored the pain of his loss and took comfort in teaching the truth of the restored gospel to the Argentinian people. At the conclusion of his 2 years of service, his family was grateful to have him home again. As he came back to his hometown and resumed his personal life, he was constantly reminded of his dad. Everywhere he went, a memory of times with his father seemed to come to the surface. He passed through a hard time of mourning the loss of his father. He missed him terribly. As fall approached that year, Chris was excited for the University of Utah football. He and his father had been avid fans and frequently attended the games together. After Chris's mission, Urban Meyer turned the Utes into a nationally ranked team. Then Kyle Whittingham took over the team and continued to lead the Utes to winning. It was a great time to be a Utes fan. Chris signed up and became the equipment manager for the Utes football team. He traveled with the team and worked on the sidelines during the games. 2007 was an exciting year. The Utes had gone undefeated and were selected to play National Football Powerhouse, Alabama, in the Sugar Bowl. Alabama was the heavy favorite for the game. It was a battle, and Chris was there on the sideline helping. Everyone in red was ecstatic when the Utes won. After the game and celebrations of the moment had quieted down, everyone left the Superdome. Chris remained, winding up his work with all the equipment. The brilliant lights of the field were out, and everyone had gone as he completed his duties. Then Chris took the opportunity and walked alone out onto the empty, dark field of the Superdome. He was still amped up by the huge win. As he walked out into the center of the field, thoughts of his father washed into his mind. This moment would have meant the world to him. He longed to share this moment with his father. As these thoughts went through his mind, he began to scream, "We did it! Dad, can you believe this? We did it!" At that moment, on the dark field of the empty Superdome, he suddenly felt the presence of his father. He knew his dad was with him. He could feel the love they both shared. Chris cried as he talked with his father for quite a while. Then he said goodbye and told him he loved him. Suddenly the cares of time and the loss of his father was gone. He knew that his father loved him and was near. Chris's father and son moment that night in the Superdome is an experience that he will cherish forever. Thanks for sending that. Here's an interesting story of an angel that made arrangements to help someone suffering in this life. Allie and her husband drove to Utah for a niece's wedding in September of 2016. Her father had moved into an assisted living center several months earlier, years after her mother had passed away. Her childhood home had been sitting empty and undisturbed for months. Allie and her husband decided to spend the night in her old home. As she walked into their old home, it seemed stuffy and hushed. As she walked through the living room, she saw an envelope prominently placed on a hutch, which was addressed to her son, Jerry. He had stayed home that weekend. As she grabbed the envelope and put it in her purse, she assumed her dad had mailed it while he was still in the house, but it had later been returned. After returning home after the wedding, her son Jerry was acting strangely. When Allie asked him what was wrong, he told her he was extremely depressed. She remembered the birthday card in her purse and explained where she had found it as she handed it to her son. As Jerry opened the envelope and read the contents, he asked through his tears, "Is this a joke? Is this real?" A little confused, Allie said, well, yes. Then Jerry showed them the card. It was a birthday card from his grandmother. In it, she tenderly told him how much she loved him and how special he was. It was like a voice from the grave, and she'd been dead for 3 years, and the card was dated 2010, several years before she had passed away. Jerry later told his mom that the birthday card saved his life. While he'd been alone in their house, he'd become very depressed, and he had decided to commit suicide. But when he read the loving message from his beloved grandma, telling him how much he meant to her and how proud she was of him, it touched his heart in a profound way. The loving message from his dear departed grandma changed his heart, and he did not go through with his plan. Allie had been in her parents' home several times since her mother's death, but had never seen this card. Her father had lived there by himself for some time. Yet no one had noticed that card sitting in such a prominent place in the front room. As Allie considered how the card could have been in plain view on the hutch all that time, she suddenly felt an assurance that her angel mother had somehow orchestrated this miracle from the other side. She knew her beloved grandson needed to feel the eternal nature of her love and know that she was still there and loved him. This saved her grandson's life. Thank you for sending that story. Cindy Van Bibber wrote, I had a dream one night in which my grandmother and another young woman came to me. Grandma was holding a clipboard with papers on it. My grandmother showed me the papers on her clipboard one at a time. Each page was filled with names of people who had attended our last family reunion. As she flipped each page over, they all contained names of people I knew. I had attended family reunions for many years, and everyone seemed to be on my grandmother's list. As she flipped further, the dates got older and older, and I recognized fewer and fewer of the names. I noticed the last paper only had a handful of names on it, and these were the names I didn't recognize at all. On the last page, my grandmother pointed to a name, but I didn't recognize it. The young woman standing behind my grandmother in the dream hadn't said a word, but had a concerned look on her face. Then the dream ended. As I pondered my dream, I concluded that the name my grandmother had pointed to was the woman standing behind her in my dream. She must be a member of our family, and her temple work needed to be done. It took me about a year before I got to the family history library, but I felt compelled to find her and do her temple work. As I finally made it to the family history library, tears fell from my eyes and I couldn't form any words. The wonderful brother missionary behind the reception counter at the family history library looked at me and said, "You are here to find someone, aren't you?" All I could do was nod. He said, "Don't worry about it. We get this all the time." I finally gained my composure, and he proceeded to show me how things worked on the computer with Family Search. He told me that the small round temple icon by each name meant their temple work had been completed. As we scrolled randomly through the names, he asked me to pick one that he could make an example of. Since it was my grandmother who showed me the name on the clipboard, I felt I should go through her line and see what I could find. As I followed her family line, I randomly clicked on a temple icon for a couple. Their names showed up along with their temple work history. But there was another name connected to this couple that did not have her temple work done. She was a previous wife who had not been sealed to her husband. The temple icon showed one couple as being sealed, but did not show the other sister's name until you clicked on the icon. This sister had subsequently been passed over. At a glance, everyone assumed that all the work in that family had been completed, but it wasn't. As I recorded her name and the pertinent dates, I knew she was the one my grandmother was trying to direct my attention to. I think my grandmother chose to come to me instead of others in my family who are much better at genealogy than I am, because I had not done family history before, and this particular problem needed fresh new eyes to find it. As I did this sister's temple ordinances, I knew that she had anxiously accepted the work. She'd been waiting for hundreds of years and had been passed over time and time again. It took me a long time to get her work done, but I did it, and I'm so happy that I did. We all have a part to play in the plan of salvation. The Lord will use us despite our frailties and weaknesses. My grandmother and her visit in my dream allowed me to find this sister and release her from the chains that bind progression in the spirit world. She is now free and can move on with her husband and their family. Thank you for this opportunity to share my special experience, and we thank you for sending it to us. I loved all these stories. They demonstrate the variety of purposes heavenly encounters can accomplish in our lives. On rare occasions, some of us are permitted to see heavenly beings with our mortal eyes. Sometimes they visit us in dreams or visions. However, most of us will only encounter them spirit to spirit. We feel their presence. They communicate concepts that become thoughts in our mind. As we doubt not and embrace these insights as divine, we will come to recognize that angels are round about us. They are our loved ones who have been assigned to bring us messages of love or warning, instruction or reproof. As Brigham Young said, the spirit world is here among us. God loves us. He wants us to find our way through time in the manner of happiness. Sometimes, due to our own actions and those of people around us, we may find ourselves feeling that God doesn't care about us. But this couldn't be further from the truth. He is a loving Heavenly Father. He wants us to be happy, and He will guide us. And He does send individuals to watch over and sustain us. Listen to those inner voices and embrace them. God wants you to know He loves you. If you have any doubt of that, please take time to think about your life. Think about those who have come before you, your parents, your grandparents, and the generations that preceded you. Don't criticize or condemn them for their faults, but think about what you want to accomplish with your time on earth. And as you think about those things, decide what you're grateful for. Think about the things that you really feel gratitude about. And as you're in that state of mind, kneel down and ask Heavenly Father, do you love me? And I promise you, you will feel His love pour into your heart and into your mind. And you will know that God is there, that He loves you, and that He will guide and direct your life. This seed can grow into a powerful, guiding principle in your life and lead you to happiness that you may not have known before. I hope you enjoyed these stories as much as I have. If you have inspirational stories, please send them to the email on the screen. I also want to thank the makers of Cardio Miracle. It really is amazing. I feel stronger, I have more energy, I have more clarity of thought. If these are things you want in your life, give it a try. You have nothing to lose. Go to cardiomiracle.com/sunshine. If you'd like to see the studies and scientific information about this wonderful product, you can find it there. Thanks for watching today. You can subscribe here. And if you enjoyed this story, you'll probably enjoy this one. And you can listen to all of Sunshine for the Soul inspirational stories right here. Thank you.